When you think of war cinema, you might picture the tactical scale of Saving Private Ryan or the operatic chaos of Apocalypse Now. But in 1985, a Soviet filmmaker stripped away the heroics and strategy and showed the horror of war through a teenage boy's face. And this boy's face does something no battlefield panorama ever could. In Come and See, the camera is almost constantly in motion. Its movement feels strangely fluid, almost dreamlike, as though it mimics the restless, childlike curiosity of Florya himself. But the further the film descends into war, the more this floating movement begins to feel suffocating. Klimov didn't arrive at this alone. Films like The Cranes Are Flying and The Ascent had already used intimate, drifting camera work to capture spiritual suffering from within. But Come and See pushes that language further. The camera doesn't strictly inhabit Florya's gaze, but it never strays far enough to offer you safety. What he sees, you see, and what he cannot bear to process, you cannot either. The title, Come and See, feels like an invitation, much like the unspoken promise of the partisans that draws Florya to dig a rifle from the dunes. He goes willingly with a smile, believing war is made of heroism and adventure. The title, however, comes from somewhere much darker. In the Book of Revelation, as the four horsemen are unleashed upon the earth, a voice cries out, "Come and see." Klimov's title invokes this apocalyptic imagery, lending the Nazi occupation of Belarus the weight of a biblical catastrophe. And Florya is made to walk through every circle of it. Every new thing Florya is made to see strips something away from him. He becomes a witness in the most devastating sense possible. In the film's early stretches, the innocence with which Florya carries himself is heartbreaking to see. His playful glances at the twins, the zest with which he poses for the photo, the way he bristles at Glasha's remarks on why he was left behind. He is still unmistakably a boy. The first major rupture arrives with the artillery attack. Until this point, war has remained distant enough to be romanticized. With the bombardment, the world suddenly becomes muffled and confusing, and after it, his face stops anticipating. Before, it was always leaning forward, toward whatever came next. From now on, it only receives. When he returns to his village and finds it deserted, Florya clings to the hope that everyone has simply fled. As Glasha and Florya run toward the woods, it is Glasha who turns and looks back at the horror. It is one of the few moments the film releases him from witness, not out of mercy, but because he isn't ready yet. Florya's descent into hell begins with him crawling through this boggy swamp caked in mire. The swamp externalizes Florya's confusion. Every movement forward feels heavier than the last. On the island, the dying elder forces Florya to confront a guilt that may not even be his to carry. The destruction of the village would have happened whether or not he dug for guns. Yet, guilt settles across his face all the same. The excitement that once animated his features disappears. For the first time, the film lets us watch childhood recede from his face. From this point on, Florya's face absorbs the horror long before his mind can make sense of it. Having moved away from the lush forests and into the harsh open plains, Florya's world narrows further. Survival becomes his only concern. The cow he steals for sustenance becomes a senseless victim of tracer bullets. The horse he rides carries him toward a village already on the brink of catastrophe. At every turn, Florya finds himself unable to alter the course of events. His choices determine where he goes, but rarely what happens around him. This is one of the film's most radical departures from conventional war narratives. Take Captain James Miller. He possesses enough agency to navigate the chaos and carry out his mission. Desmond Doss, despite refusing to bear arms, shapes events through his determination to save lives. Even Kaji, in the greatest anti-war film ever made, remains defined by his attempts to impose his moral convictions upon an inhuman world. Florya is afforded no such power. The liquidation sequence marks Florya's final passage from participant in war to its helpless witness. He is no longer confronting the scattered brutalities of war, but its bureaucratic machinery of annihilation. One of the last choices Florya makes is to jump from the barn window. This decision to survive becomes a curse. Those petrified eyes and that wrinkled forehead already bear the scars of what he has seen. Still, he hasn't seen the worst of it yet. Deleuze described the cinematic close-up as an affection image. Detached from its surroundings, the face ceases to function merely as a character within a narrative, and instead becomes an emotion unto itself. By the final act of Come and See, Klimov's close-ups of Florya arrive exactly at this. Florya's face becomes a distillation of a reality too vast and cruel to be fully shown. No matter how much he witnesses, what he sees remains only a fragment of a catastrophe far larger than himself. That larger reality is glimpsed in the bombers that pass overhead. Throughout the film, Florya looks up at them. They drift across the sky with an indifference that dwarfs the suffering below, suggesting that the horrors surrounding him extend far beyond the villages and faces he encounters. In the aftermath of the massacre, the Nazis and their collaborators are captured. Excuses are offered. Blame is assigned. And eventually, revenge is carried out. Yet none of it seems capable of loosening the calcified muscles of Florya's face. Nothing unfolding before him can alter what he has already seen. His face has become the record of a consciousness that has witnessed the limits of what witnessing can hold. When the partisan forces disperse, Florya's gaze locks onto Hitler's portrait lying in a puddle. He raises his rifle and begins firing. This is no longer simply an act of vengeance directed at a tyrant's image. With each shot, history begins to run backwards. The images retreat further into the past until Hitler is no longer a dictator, a politician, or a soldier. He is simply a child. The child does not know what he will become. Neither did Florya. Now, Florya stops shooting. The film flashes back to the massacre. The dead remain dead. Nothing has been reversed. Yet, faced with the image of a child, Florya lowers the rifle and looks at us. The gaze that spent the film confronting history now confronts us.